This is such a powerful body of information to understand and to recognize what these parameters mean in our lives. But we're going to come back to our drawings here in just a few moments. What I'll ask you to do is to simply remember this process of decreasing magnetics and increasing frequency. Hold that thought just for a moment. I have another drawing here. This is what's called, it's a very simple phase diagram for you engineers. It's a phase diagram. I chose water, H2O, showing the different ways that water may express itself under different conditions. And you know these conditions, and that's why I chose this, so you could see these. Now this is temperature moving in this direction, increasing in this direction, and this is atmospheric pressure increasing in this direction right here. So what we can say is under certain temperatures and certain pressures, water within this dark line, water exists as a solid, as ice. Under a whole range of pressures right here, and under a narrower range of temperatures right here. Under other temperatures and pressures, water expresses as a liquid between this line and this line right here. And under other conditions, it expresses as a gas. Chemically, it's still water. It's H2O. Structurally, it's expressing very differently. It's going through what we call a phase transition or a change of state. And I've shown this to you because I believe it's a beautiful metaphor for precisely what you and I are experiencing on Earth right now. I believe that Earth is going through a phase transition. Instead of temperature and pressure, what we're dealing with are magnetics and frequency over time. As in our phase diagram, as temperature and pressure change, H2O continues to be H2O and crystallizes differently. As you and I and our Earth undergo a transition, a change of state of magnetics and frequency, we remain carbon-based beings. We remain in physical bodies, and our physical bodies are going through a change of state, a crystalline change of transition. That, I believe, is the essence of the experience that we are asking ourselves to assimilate at this time. That change of state, that transition, is the essence of what every belief system, every religion, and scientific doctrine that I'm aware of, that I've ever studied, is based upon. This is a beautiful image from the artist Alex Gray out of his book Sacred Mirrors. And what he's showing is this form of the human body. This body can be nothing more than the elements. It's superimposed upon a periodic table of elements behind us here. It's superimposed upon that table. The body can be nothing more than some combination of the elements, the very elements that we find in Earth. That's all these bodies are. They are different arrangements of all of these elements that we see right here. It's amazing when I take people on a sacred journey to Peru, for example, or to Egypt. And we go in Peru, we go to the Urubamba River, and we reach down and we pick up a handful of that sand. And it feels good. People like to feel that. And I say it should feel good to you because that's you. That sand, the elements and the minerals that you're holding in your hand, they are you, different ratios, different proportions and combinations. That's what you are. So all that we may be are the elements that we find here on our Earth. Our Earth is going through a phase transition. It's changing. We are asking ourselves to allow the gift of that transition as it unfolds within our bodies. This image, this particular image I chose, it's a beautiful image out of the first page of the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the Living, as it's now being called. And what you're seeing is in the center is an image of Buddha expressed as a being, and leading up to, these are all these concentric circles, are all of the experiences that a human must move through to achieve this Buddha state. Now the interesting thing is this, that Buddha is shown in the Buddha state, and look at this, all the experiences are given to us as vibratory codes, patterns of vibration that must be achieved before we reach this state. That will be important in just a moment. I'm going to show you so that you may see with your own eyes the relationship between vibration and matter and the way that matter expresses within given parameters, within a given environment. Now, another reason I showed you this image is because In the traditional Tibetan scriptures, if I may use that term, there is a path that is outlined. It is a path of choice where somewhere in the life of a human, a mysterious force that we call the soul may have the opportunity to leave the physical body, as we've just defined it, and transition to another state of experience. We call that transition death. And the Tibetan book of the living and the dead go into tremendous details about coaching the soul through the transition of that death. So this is the Tibetan tradition. The Egyptian tradition shows something very similar. This is an image of the goddess Nut. Step back so you can see. This is the head of Nut. This is Nut's body. If you could see her feet and the rest of her body on the other side, what you would see is that the sun, the red dots of the sun, are birthed through the womb of Nut and go through the world of men, daylight, until they reach the other side, and Nut swallows the sun again, and we go into darkness, and the sun passes through her body and completes the cycle over and over again. Through this tradition, this is a code that was left in the mystery schools in the Egyptian temples. We live this cycle of light and dark in every breath that we inhale and exhale, in every day of our lives as those days pass through our lives. And they also make a distinction that at some point within the lifetime of each human, we will have the opportunity to make this transition where the life force or the soul leaves the body returns to those elements that it came from, just like you saw in Alex Gray's drawing, and the soul moves on into a new expression of itself, a very different experience. Okay? This is another image now, a very similar image in the Christian traditions, the Christian mystery schools, showing the same thing, showing the distinction between a dark world below, a lighter world in heaven, and a time in between those worlds, the time of our lives right now, as we walk in between these worlds. And the distinction is made between the time that we are here and to get to either here or here, the soul leaves the body. Okay, now I'm making that distinction because it is a path. The opportunity for the soul to leave the body and to transition into a higher form of experience is a path. It is not the only path. Okay? So I'm going to make a distinction between the Egyptian, the Tibetan, and the traditional Christian traditions, and the mystery schools are saying something very different. Between these traditions and the mystery schools, as we'll show them to you. So again, this is one of Alex Gray's beautiful drawings. This is a beautiful image of that moment where the soul transitions from the physical body. The physical body is left to deteriorate. It is the vibratory pattern of the soul, the will, that holds these elements together, allowing this body to be what the body is. So, through those traditions, what we are conditioned to believe is at some point in our lives, the essence of our being transitions from the physical body into another form of experience, existence, and this body returns to the elements from which it was borrowed, back to the earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. That is a path. That is our conditioning in the Western world, and that is a choice. And now I'm going to draw a distinction and show you the choice and what that choice means in terms of all of the technical things that we have been discussing here in the last few minutes. Through the mystery schools, we are given another path, another opportunity for the body to express differently through life. These are, I just took some random passages out of ancient and sacred texts from the mystery schools, just to give you some idea of why context is so important. I'm going to read some of these to you. You may not be able to read them well on your own screen. I'll read them to you, and bear in mind that without context, what we're reading here makes very little sense to any of us.